Russia warns U.S. not to act unilaterally against North Korea. In response to the U.S. Vice President, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Mike Pence's statement on the U.S. running out of, quote, strategic patience towards Pyongyang does not contribute to resolving the crisis. The top Russian diplomat also voiced hope there will be no repeat of the U.S. strike in North Korea. On Monday, speaking from the DMZ, Mike Pence said the world had witnessed the, quote, strength and resolve of Trump in actions taken in Syria and Afghanistan, and threatened North Korea, quote, not to test this resolve or, quote, the strength of the armed forces of the United States. Lavrov responded by saying, quote, I hope that there won't be any unilateral actions like we recently saw in Syria, and that the U.S. will follow the policies Trump repeatedly declared during his election campaign. He also warned the U.S. not to take any military actions, stressing that the, quote, risky nuclear and missile endeavors of Pyongyang violating UNSC resolutions could not be used as an excuse for violating international law and the UN Charter, quote, in the same fashion as in Syria. The period of U.S. policy before the current escalation could be hardly described as a, quote, era of strategic patience, Lavrov added. I cannot call the Obama administration's period an era of strategic patience, as the U.S. has been quite harshly limiting North Korea's capabilities to develop economy sectors related to nuclear or energy areas, Lavrov said, referring to past U.S. initiatives, many of them backed by the UN Security Council. Also addressing the matter, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that harsh statements do not contribute to peace and stability in the region, while commenting on South Korean President Hwang Kyo-ah's promise to, quote, implement intensive punitive measures on Pyongyang in case of any, quote, provocations. Our position is well known and consistent. We call on all sides to avoid any actions which might be perceived as a provocation, and we stand for the continuation of coordinated international efforts in existing formats to resolve the North Korean problem, Peskov said. Meanwhile, tensions on the Korean peninsula remain high after Pyongyang conducted a missile test amid joint U.S.-South Korea drills in March, and with at least one and as many as 3 U.S. aircraft carrier groups headed towards the peninsula. Today, North Korea's UN ambassador said the U.S. has, quote, created a dangerous situation in which the thermonuclear war may break out at any moment on the peninsula and pose a serious threat to the world's peace and security, to say nothing of those on Northeast Asia. Separately, North Korea told the BBC that the country would be, quote, conducting more missile tests on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis, in effect assuring a provocation. Judging by the market's response on Monday, a global thermonuclear war would be just the catalyst to push the S&P back over its all-time high of 2,400. Let's take a listen to this. Russia warns U.S. not to act alone against North Korea.
North Korea and these sort of strong words here that are being offered from Russia. Russia. What's sort of the way that this warning is being issued, and how seriously should the United States take it?
Well, I mean, Russia, via its foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, warned the U.S. against making any unilateral action, taking force to resolve the crisis with North Korea. Using slightly less diplomatic language, a man who's become known as Putin's chief propagandist, TV presenter called Sergei Kiselyov, unfavorably compared Trump to the North Korean leader, saying that he was more dangerous because he's less predictable. So from Russia, there is real concern that this situation is spiraling out of control.
How close are the ties between Russia and North Korea at this point, or sort of what's its vested interest in defending North Korea?
Well, Russia has a land border with North Korea, so it has interest in terms of security interests. The economic ties do exist between the two countries, but they're not nearly as strong as they are between North Korea and China. But actually, Russia's interest is perhaps broader than this. It's looking at Donald Trump now as someone who is moving quite aggressively on several fronts, which threaten Russia. In Syria, we had US missile strikes, and now in North Korea we see that Donald Trump is perhaps willing to take very forceful action again.
Henry, what about the relationship between Russia and the US more broadly? Any chance of a warming between Putin and Trump again?
Well, you mentioned that there is this meeting planned in Geneva. Russia is keen to restart the cooperation that had existed on Syria during the time of the administration of Barack Obama. That was one of the few examples where the two countries did work together in spite of very, very bad tensions. So if that meeting takes place, Russia will see that as an important sign that notwithstanding all of the conflicts now that exist, that the two countries can sit down and try to work something out.
And then, Henry, what about the idea that China is now on a very different page when it comes to North Korea, and Russia and China don't have a particular relationship of any sort, so what position does this put China in?
Well, I mean, with China, interestingly enough, there was a vote at the UN Security Council on Syria, and China has traditionally always voted together with Russia. Russia vetoed this resolution, which wants to hold accountable Bashar al-Assad for the chemical attack, and China, rather than joining Russia, abstained, and the US saw that as a very important development because China is distancing itself from Russia. So definitely in Moscow, there's concern at that phenomenon.
To go back to sort of Vonnie's overall relationship question, the press conference that we saw with Lavrov and Tillerson, even though Lavrov certainly was a little bit inflammatory, they both struck conciliatory tones generally. Now that you get the Kim Jong-un comparison, what are you hearing from not only Russian media, but Russian officials in the wake of that meeting that gives us indications about the relationship?
I mean, what we understand is that the meeting really didn't achieve anything concrete, and you could argue that the expectations were so low that the fact that Tillerson met Putin at all was a sign of progress. But there was disappointment. They're not sure who has influence in Washington, whether Tillerson actually has the authority to speak with about these issues with them. So they're really waiting to see what Trump does in the future.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you for watching.